Welcome to the Rockin Rich Lynch on the Radio Show. I'm your host, Rockin Rich Lynch, inviting you to join me as we discover great new music by bands and artists from around the world. With interviews, music news and reviews, great prizes, and a whole lot more. Visit us online today at soundpress.net for great music promotion and publicity. Hi, this is Rockin Rich Lynch, and you're listening to the very best of Rockin Rich Lynch on the radio. We recently moved our operations from the New York, New Jersey market to Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now looking for a production and broadcast partner in the region to take the radio show to new heights. If you're a band, musician, solo act, or represent a musical project in any genre, please visit soundpress.net and our new site, musiccitynashville.net, to learn how we can help get your message to the world. Now, please enjoy this great interview from our archives. The man we're about to speak with helped transform a laid-back country rock outfit into a stadium rock spectacular when he joined the Eagles as lead guitarist in 1974. Now back with his first solo album in 30 years called Road to Forever, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member Don Felder to the show. Don, welcome.
Thanks, Rich. It's a pleasure to be on the air with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's real good to talk to you. Now, Don, first and foremost, I want to tell you that we here are celebrating our 10th anniversary of supporting Why Hunger and their annual Hungerthon on this show. And Why Hunger was co-founded by Harry Chapin in 1975, around the time your impact was being felt in the Eagles. Do you have any memories or thoughts about the Cats in the Cradle composer?
Well, absolutely. Who doesn't know his music and think the world of him and all the great things he did musically, and also like this foundation, as you said, was founded by him, and just in general a wonderful person, great musician, and an amazing philanthropist.
Yeah, another great from the 70s, Don.
Yeah, we're all over still.
So in addition to being an award-winning musician and member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you became a best-selling author with the release of your book, Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles, in 2008. How did the creative and promotional process of that project compare to that of making music?
Well, it was completely different. When I first started working on myself, kind of as a self-exploration, cathartic process, I was doing these meditations every day for about 30 to 45 minutes a day on specific areas of my life in an attempt to understand how I'd gotten from this little impoverished condition on a dirt road in North Florida through moving to New York and then Boston and California and winding up in the Eagles and all the stuff that had happened to me and how it had changed me morally, ethically, drug-wise, drinking-wise, the whole thing. And I wanted to do that so I could really get myself grounded, my feet back on the ground, and understand what had happened to me before I went forward in life. So I started doing these meditations. When I came out of the meditations, I'd write down in longhand these very vivid recollections. My fiance read those on a couple of legal pads and said, this would be a great book. Now, honestly, I was one of the worst English students in high school. I even spent a summer in high school when I got an F in English because I did not care about that subject at all. Music, loved it to death. English, But who would have ever thought that such a poor English student would wind up on the New York Times bestsellers list? So after I wound up having a publishing deal to write this book, then I had the daunting task of taking my autobiography, my life stories, and actually putting them in a form that would work as text. And so that took several years to do that. And in the process, I've had a studio in my house since 1982. And so as I was going through these feelings of different things that had happened to me in my life, I would write them down in ink, and then I'd also go into the studio and I would write songs or music ideas just as an emotional release for it. So when I finished writing the book, publishing it, and went out and promoted it, book signings, and as I was playing on the road, I'd always go into local radio stations, TV stations, and promote it as well. When I came back, I really wanted to look at all those song ideas. I'd written 26 ideas, pare it down to what I thought were the best 16 songs, go in the studio, record them, finish producing them, and then I pared it down to what I thought were the best 12 songs out of the batch and put out this CD. So it was a totally different experience, although it all kind of stemmed from the same root of my life experiences.
And the book gave you the album that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, Road to Forever today. So you got a 2-for-1.
That's it.
Now, Don, if it's okay with you, I'd like to back up a little bit and go a little bit in chronological order because that makes the most sense because there's a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
Don Felder, lead guitarist of the Eagles, singer-songwriter. DonFelder.com is the website. Back now with Road to Forever out in October of 2012. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But tell me a little bit about getting bit by the music bug thanks to the king of rock and roll.
Well, I actually grew up, like I said, in Gainesville, Florida, and I think we were the last family in that town to wind up getting a television. It was a small screen, black and white television that was about the size of a washing machine. And I remember one of the first things I saw on that television show when I was 10 years old was I saw Ed Sullivan present Elvis Presley. I saw all these just wonderful, beautiful young girls screaming at him and him shaking his hips and playing guitar, and I went, I think I want to do that. That looks like fun. So I wound up trading a handful of cherry bombs to a kid across the street that had a beat-up old guitar at the top of his closet and mowed lawns and washed cars to earn enough money to buy the missing strings that were broken on this guitar. Found a guy a couple of blocks away from me that could just barely make a few chords and taught me this one song called Red River Valley, which is kind of a country song. And I was off and running. I was bitten by the bug. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a town in Gainesville where there was an unusual number of people that went on to become platinum-selling artists, inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Stephen Stills and I had a band together when we were 15. And then when he left and moved to California, another guy moved into town named Bernie Ledden, who was one of the founding members of the Eagles, that we hooked up later after he moved back to California. Tom Petty was one of my guitar students when I was teaching guitar at this music store there.
Hey,
the
Don.
Allman Brothers had a band called the Allman Joys or the Spotlights. They were always in battles of the bands together with us and Tommy, and they won every time we played against them. They were just an amazing group. Dwayne taught me how to play slide guitar. I taught Tommy how to play. I mean, there was just a kind of a very interesting group of people that were all obsessed with music at that time. Then we kind of shared our knowledge with each other.
Yeah, Don, that is so cool because, when I was reading your book and I was reading about Gainesville, I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. I mean, if anybody, if I had to compare my performance style to anybody, it would probably be more Tom Petty just because that's like the range of my vocals right there. But Tom Petty is an amazing musician and I love him so much. And I was, reading your book, I was like, I wonder if Don knew Tom Petty. And did you know him? You taught him. So when you were teaching him, was he? Did you take him from novice as a novice?
Actually, when I started teaching him, he was playing bass in this band called the Rucker Brothers, and he was singing and playing bass. And he thought bass was kind of an uncool instrument to front the band with, so he wanted to transfer into playing guitar. Unfortunately, that band called the Rucker Brothers had two brothers that both played guitar, so he was kind of strapped with playing bass in that band. But he started learning to play chords, and he knew musically what he wanted to do. He just didn't have the technical wherewithal at the time to do it. And so I taught him for about a year and a half. I worked with the Rucker Brother band. They had those two guitar players that would just thrash artlessly during the song. So I tried to help teach one how to play rhythm and one how to play lead, and take turns playing off of each other, like most bands do, and just kind of helped arrange some of their stuff. And Tom was always fearless on stage. He'd step up to the mic, flip his long blonde hair, and sing, and the girls in the crowd would go, "Oh my God, he's so good!" And he just had a really kind of magnetic charisma, and went on to be an amazing songwriter. So, if anything that I had a success in as a teacher, I would say, Tom was my best student.
Were you teaching Tom mainly rhythm guitar?
Yeah, pretty much. He never really had the interest in being a great shredder, per se. He really wanted to play rhythm guitar so he could write. It's hard to write songs with a bass, and so he wanted to learn rhythm guitar. So we learned a bunch of songs together. I taught him a bunch of songs, teaching him the chords, all the different chords, the bar chord and the first position chords as well, just so he could have a writing tool. And that's about what he does now on guitar. He's not a He's not a shredder or a fabulous lead guitar, but he's a great singer, a great performer, and a great songwriter.
When you were hanging out with the Allman Brothers, Don, and the actual brothers, Greg and Dwayne, how realized was their act at that point?
Well, those two guys could have any rhythm section with them, and it was just fantastic. Greg was just an amazing singer, and Dwayne was a great guitar player. And so those two people being able to trade off between vocals and lead guitar, they had any rhythm section with them, and they were just astounding. But when they actually wound up with Dickie Betts and Bush Trucks and all the band with two drummers and the whole group, they were just astounding. I remember one of the last battles with the band I was in against them. They just blew the place apart with that configuration. And it was in the parking lot of the Gainesville Shopping Center in front of this music store called Lipham Music, where I used to teach. And, it was an amazing thing to watch and see Dwayne play slide guitar and guitar so well. And Greg just had this really amazing soulful voice, played great Hammond B3. And, those two guys, like I said, could be in any band together, and it would have been successful. They were just really gifted, talented people.
What's cool, Don, is, we're talking, and, I did read your book in advance of this, and, you really, you came from like a blue-collar ethic where you saw what you wanted and you went and did the things you needed to do to make that happen. And early on, you had a couple of things that happened to you. You fell out of a tree at 4 years old and broke your arm, and you're also diagnosed with the early symptoms of polio. Did those things help you learn to persevere and overcome?
Well, yeah. When I was diagnosed with the very early symptoms of polio, I was hospitalized in a children's polio ward for, I think, an entire summer, about 4 or 5 months. And there was no television in the room, so the only source of pastime entertainment was they had these little round, flat speakers that you could put under your pillow, and the radio would play. So I would lay there at 4 or 5 years old and listen to the radio all day long. And I think some of my early ear training came from being quarantined in that particular situation. Falling out of the tree and breaking my left elbow was really a tragedy, because I had severe compound fracture in the joint itself, and the doctor said I'd never be able to straighten my arm out. So my mother developed her own therapy, which was she took an old metal beach bucket, like a kid's sand pail that you take to the beach, filled it with sand and put water in it so it was really heavy, and would make me walk around the outside perimeter of my house 3 times a day, once at after breakfast, once after lunch, once after dinner, and it would pull my arm straight, and I would just scream and cry. My mother would hold my other hand and walk with me, crying alongside me, because it was so difficult for her to see me going through the pain. But now I have full range of use of my left arm, so I thank her for being so diligent about sticking with that in order for me to be able to have full use of my arm. It was very painful, but yet a really well done procedure she prescribed for me.
Yeah, amazing the things that you go through, and then you turn into a world-class guitar player down the road, and if you hadn't have gone through that, who knows what would have happened.
Well, the other thing is, when I was growing up, like I said, we were really very, very poor, and so I really had nothing to lose. I had nothing to begin with in the way of money or status or anything. So I was in a position in life where I could choose to do anything I felt so motivated to do. And if I failed, you can only be so poor, So I literally had nothing to lose. So I was just overwhelmed with music and just obsessed by that, and just decided that's what I wanted to do. And I was so used to being poor, it wasn't like, oh my God, you're not going to be able to survive. It was, I had nothing to lose, so I just chose that and went for it 24/7.
Don Felder, creator of Hotel California, with the Eagles in 1976, on the phone with us. DonFelder.com is the website. Don, can you go about another 15 minutes?
Absolutely.
Imagine the 50 million Americans who are hungry right now. Imagine that 17 million of them are children. Now imagine how you can help. Since 1975, Hungerthon and Why Hunger have counted on you to help feed those in need. Right now, you can make a $10 donation to a hungry child by texting the word IMAGINE to 50555. Or find other ways to help at hungerthon.org. Imagine there's no hunger.
Daly, and you're with Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio. Don't even think about moving.
Hey, everyone, it's Nils Lofgren from the E Street Band. You're listening to Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio. Keep on rockin'.
All right, we will be right back with part 2 of the Don Felder interview. I hope you guys are all enjoying that, but I did want to step back in and let you know that we are here doing our Hungerthon 2012. This is show number 2 of that endeavor, and hungerthon.org is the website where you can go on over and make a donation to the organization. And I have some on-air copy that I can read for you guys. We got 50 million Americans are hungry. Maybe even some of those are your friends and neighbors. Support Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio's annual Hungerthon and help end hunger in America. Donate now, and you can do that by visiting hungerthon.org. That's hungerthon.org. For 1 out of 6 Americans, hunger is a reality. Support Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio's annual Hungerthon and help end hunger in America. You can donate now by visiting hungerthon.org. And over there you can find out they have a hotline phone number, and they have a number where you can text the donation. But you should probably visit the website hungerthon.org right now. We are having a good time on this lovely December day. The weather's been good. It's been really warm. We're looking forward to getting into New York City very soon. Laura and I had an amazing year covering shows, and you can read everything that we did over at soundpress.net. It's been our biggest and best year ever, and we're wondering how we're going to be able to beat that in 2013. We got to see about 10 Broadway plays thanks to the website that we got to review. And we got to see some amazing things as well. We got to see the Cirque du Soleil Zarkana show. Got to see War Horse. So much stuff that we had fun with in the city. The last show that we got to see in the city was at BB King's. It was Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater fame. He put together a new supergroup called PSMS, and we got to get up real close to that show, and it was just a big 2-hour shred fest. It was amazing, and that concert review is online over at soundpress.net. Just click on the feature article links, and you'll see everything that we have there. And again, we have been doing this radio show for about 10 years. We just put it up on YouTube, and we're starting to get even more hits from around the world. And if you guys could, we'd really love you to, cut and paste some of the links to the YouTube shows, especially these Hungerthon programs, into your Facebook pages. Because when you do that, the mechanism to play the show streams right up, and you can give all your fans and acquaintances and your friends the ability to hear our program with just one simple click of a mouse. And it's just an amazing feature, and it really helps us reach a larger market. I mean, when I was dreaming of being on radio long ago, I had my eyes set on a local market. I was a disc jockey on a college radio station for about a year and a half, and I was in a very isolated market. There wasn't any streaming, and so the initial dream was to get in a local market somewhere. But even then, the amount of people that I'd be able to reach would have been very, very limited. So you wait long enough and amazing things happen. Times change, technology advances and increases, and here we are in the day and age of the internet. And yeah, I really don't have a real radio station behind me or backing me, but I have the ability to reach people all over the world. They know who this program is. They get to hear these great interviews that we do with these world-famous rock stars. They're able to expand their reach in a slightly different way, and it's just really, really amazing. And what I would love to do eventually is do a combination of where I still do a podcast and still reach that audience, but have a home base on a real radio station. So I'm still waiting for one of those satellite radio stations to contact me, and let's get something going, because I'd love to put in a blue-collar themed 8-hour day where I just do a variety program like the ones we do here on this show, but where anything can happen, where guests can call in on the spot to promote what they have happening, and it would be great. This week coming up in New York City, we have the amazing 12-12-12 concert, which we won't be attending because A, I didn't bother trying to get tickets, and B, I'm not going to bother even putting in for a press credential for that one, because it's probably beyond me at this point. And who knows how long that concert's going to last in New York City. And it's going to be available to over 1 billion people on TV, so I'll be at home in the comfort of my warm living room watching that show and really enjoying it. Bruce Springsteen will be there, Bon Jovi, The Who, Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, who we did get to see this year. We got to see the last known Foo Fighter show, which was just fantastic. But in addition to that, this is what I'm saying, I'd love to be, have that show where some of these people in the 12-12-12 concert would get on the air and talk to me. In addition to that, I did find out just yesterday that Jackson Browne will be a featured performer at a concert to free Leonard Peltier. He's an American Indian activist who was arrested back in the 1970s and been jailed ever since. And I remember Jackson used to perform some Amnesty International concerts, and he would speak about this man's incarceration and, how we should all get together with one voice to call for his release. And that was about 25 years ago, and this man is still in jail. They just announced that next week in the middle of December, Jackson and a bunch of other people, Bruce Coburn, I believe, is one of them, will be getting together for a free Leonard Peltier concert at the Beacon Theater. And again, these are the type of events that just pop up that are just announced really quickly where, you never know. I'll have this variety show that I want to do, and people will just call in and, we'll be having fun. We'll be kicking back, and I want to do this for 8 hours a day. That is my goal. Let me read you a little bit more. You're listening to Hungerthon to benefit our partners at Why Hunger, who help ensure everyone has access to good food during times of crisis and every day. To bid on more than 100 unique auction items or to make a donation and receive a John Lennon or Bruce Springsteen tee, go over to hungerthon.org. That's hungerthon.org right now. You can do that, and you'll be making a difference. Hungerthon.org. I hope everybody is enjoying these programs. We're going to get back now to Don Felder. DonFelder.com is his website. We got another 20 minutes with Don coming right up. I hope you all enjoy it. I hope, as if you've been hearing me ask, you'll spread the word about this program, and you'll share the link in your Facebook page, especially to the YouTube site, because that's the easiest way for people to tune in. And we're going to go back to our drawing board and get on the phone. I'm going to be switching hats from engineer and radio host, where I'll be putting on my producer's hat and getting back on the phone with some of these artists and see who we can have on the program next week for Hungerthon show number 3. And if that happens, who knows, we might even have Hungerthon show number 4. This is Rockin' Rich Lynch. Thanks for listening to Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio. We'll see you next time, everybody.
It's Nina Blackwood, and you're listening to Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio.
This is Norman Greenbaum. I'm on the radio with Rockin' Rich Lynch.
Everybody, what's going on? This is Zach Wild from Black Label Society, and we're all doing a hang with Rockin' Rich Lynch on the radio.
Imagine the 50 million Americans who are hungry right now. Imagine that 17 million of them are children. Now imagine how you can help. Since 1975, Hungerthon and Why Hunger have counted on you to help feed those in need. Right now, you can make a $10 donation to a hungry child by texting the word IMAGINE to 50555. Or find other ways to help at hungerthon.org. Imagine there's no hunger.
And the world will live as one.
How did growing up in the turbulent 60s with the Cuban Missile Crisis, the JFK assassination, and the Vietnam War help define you as a person?
Well, that's really funny that you asked that, because I remember being in the classroom the day they announced over the PA that JFK had been assassinated, and it was just devastating. And as far as the Cuban Missile Crisis, I lived in Florida, and Florida has such a high water table that there was no way you could build a bomb shelter and dig a basement that you could get into. So if there was going to be a nuclear explosion, there was no way for us to escape it. So it was just a flip of the coin fate-wise if we were going to perish in something like that or not. And
wow.
There was no way other than moving to a different part of the United States where we could have provided any kind of shelter. But I loved actually a lot of the Cuban influence on music that took place in Florida, down in Miami, when I would go down there and play in clubs and listen to that music. And I think it also influenced stills with songs like Love the One You're With. It has that kind of Cuban rhythm to it. Hotel California has a really strong Spanish influence as well. So I think that was a positive influence on me musically. And politically, I just kind of threw my hands up and went, if this is going to happen, this is going to be my fate. There's nothing I can do about it. So it didn't really affect me that much. Vietnam was tragic in the fact that, I felt really bad for all the soldiers that had been drafted and went into war, and upon return, instead of being celebrated for their service, they were really ostracized politically by the public, that they had been part of a very unfavorable war. And I thought that was a government decision, not the soldiers' decision. They had done their full service and their duty to this country, and they should have been celebrated upon their return. And, all the stuff that took place back in the 60s and the protest against all of that Vietnam War, they should have been protesting against the government as opposed to taking it out on the soldiers, to me. So I had some dear friends that were in the Vietnam War that went there, and it was just a tragic thing on the American history.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. It really wasn't the soldiers' fault to end up there. And Don, I am actually eyeing up November 22nd, 2013 as a very important date. And it just occurred to me prior to talking to you today that, it would be cool to see some music festivals spring up around that date, maybe in Dallas, because I think we still need to get to the bottom of what actually happened in 1963 for the JFK assassination. But 50th anniversary coming up next year should be a very interesting time.
I've watched so many different films and documentaries about that. I'm not certain that until everyone that was even vaguely associated with that entire scene has long since passed away will the public ever know the truth. So who knows?
Right, those records are closed. So another big event in the 60s, in August of 1969, you attended the historic Woodstock Music Festival in Bethel, New York. Would you say that event itself was worthy of its legend today?
Absolutely. Well, especially at my young age at the time. Not only that, but seeing Stephen Stills, my childhood friend, on stage with Crosby, Stills, and Nash at the Woodstock was just mind-blowing for me. And seeing Jimi Hendrix and all the people that were there at that time was just, it was probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, music event in that decade, in the 60s, that took place. So it left a very lasting impression on me, even to this day. I think fondly of it. And even though the conditions were harsh, the music was just amazing. And so I don't know that there has ever been an event quite like that since that had. It was kind of a one-of-a-kind. It was the first of one-of-a-kind. And so, if you had the honor and pleasure to be there, it was a phenomenal experience. And hopefully something like that will come back together again. I know they've tried to have Woodstock 2, and it just didn't have the same response. But anyway.
And Woodstock 3 came from the pit of hell, apparently. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit because we got to get into some of your Eagles stuff in the new album. But what I found interesting about your life as told in Heaven and Hell is how everything that you did kind of built upon each other, as far as the skills that you learned and the people that you met all helped to create and lead to your destiny. And I found that very interesting, how that, not everybody can do that, but with the benefit of hindsight, you can see how, like, your younger formative years led into what you did in adulthood to your ultimate destiny as a legendary member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I found that very cool how you laid that all out.
Well, yeah, that's just the sequence of what took place in my life. And I don't know how much you are masters of your destiny, or we are masters of our destiny, but those are the steps that happened to me in my life that led me to where I am today. And I don't know that you can sit down and map that out, as much as that there's a book called Outliers, which is written by the guy that wrote The Tipping Point, that discusses this topic for people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and just how things like that happen to people, being at the right place, the right time, the right obsessions, and the right desires to be propelled to some level of success in their career. It's a very interesting book, and after reading that, he also discusses the Beatles and how that all came about, and why. It's a great read and a nice look into kind of the fickle fate of destiny that draws everyone's life path. And so I suggest you read that. It'd be an interesting read for you.
Will do, Don. Don Felder is on the phone with us, donfelder.com. The new album is Road to Forever, out in 2012, his first solo record proper in about 30 years. So your good friend Bernie Ledden convinces you to move to California, and ultimately you're invited to join the Eagles. And almost immediately, that famous Eagle tension makes itself known. It seems like there was really no such thing as a peaceful, easy feeling during your time in the band. Is that true?
I think that song is as close to it as we ever got. There was always a great deal of kind of friction and contention and arguments going on in the band, and not so much based on personality or control issues as it was in music decisions. What songs should be on the record? Who should sing? Who shouldn't sing? Who was going to play the guitar part? What guitar part we should play? To the point, I think, for certain songs on the long run record, I'd play a solo, Glenn would play a solo, and Joe would play a solo, and then we would decide which one was the best. So we did find ways to resolve some of them, but there was always a great deal of friction about what was the best thing to do for this band. And anytime you put 5 people in the same band that everyone can write, sing, and play, and has or could easily front their own band themselves, it's like having 5 AAA-type personalities in the same band, 5 frontmen. And so there's all these issues and political issues and control issues and music issues and everything that takes place in that particular agreement or arrangement that causes the friction. I think very fondly and with great memories of a lot of the guys that were in that band that I worked with for 27 years. We created some amazing pieces of music together. There were many good days where we laughed and had fun together, and there was a lot of difficult times as well. But the end result was that all of that concern about the quality of what we were doing is really what made the best records that we made. My regret is that we didn't actually make more records. We would make one record every 3 to 5 years, and then between 82 and 94 was almost 12 or 14 years where we didn't even talk to each other. That was, to me, just wasted time. We could have been writing and working together in a very kind of restricted way so that we weren't working so hard that we were fraying each other's nerves. That was one of the problems in the band, is that, we worked from 10 to 11 months out of the year, either on the road or in the studio. It was pretty much nonstop. And when you have that much intensity of work together with people, you can't help but, people say things they don't mean, or, outbursts of anger, or, just frustrations. You just get tired. And I think that was a big part of it. And one of the reasons Bernie Ledden quit the band and left was he didn't like how intense the work schedule was. He wanted to take more time off in between tours, go to Hawaii, do some surfing, get some sun, get healthy again, and then go back at it. And no one else in the band wanted to do that. So he finally reached a point where he said, I've got to stop doing this, and, I'm more concerned about my health than this band. And so he left. And there was some wisdom in what he was trying to present to us, but no one at that time was willing to accept it.
Hey, I think your fans would agree with you that perhaps maybe one of their regrets is that there wasn't more recorded music, especially when you guys were creating such quality pieces back in in the 70s from the Hotel California period into the long run. So we agree with you there, Don. You end up writing the music for the songs that would put the Eagles into the stratosphere: Hotel California, Life in the Fast Lane, and Victim of Love. Would you say that was your most prolific period in the band? And if so, what accounted for that?
Well, first of all, I did not write Life in the Fast Lane. I played guitar on it in the studio with Joe, but I didn't write that. Every time we would start an album project, I would write between 12 and 17 song ideas and put it on a cassette and give copies to everyone in the band. And usually, if 2 of the songs got on a record, I was happy because there were only 10 or 12 tracks on an album, and there were 5 guys in the band, so everybody gets 2 songs, and you're pretty much done. So I think I've always written an abundance of music and abundance of material. Even for this record, like I said, this New Road to Forever album, I wrote 26 songs, and there's only 12 of them on this record. So not that quantity equals quality, but I think the more you write, the better the selection of material you have to choose from, so that it works out to where you, instead of just having 10 songs to record and finish, that all of them have to go on. If you write 25 or 30 of them, and you wind up picking 10 or 12 when they're finished, then you've got just a better selection of finished material to choose from. So I've always been productive as far as writing goes.
Well, Don, I am loving the new album. Listened to it many times. We can't go full through the whole album track by track, but I will tell you, I love Money. I love Money because basically you're equating money there. It's a hard rocking track to a 4-letter word.
Well, I think money, like people always say, the old cliche is the root of all evil, and whether it's families feuding over inheritances, politicians dealing with the deficit that we have now, or lawyers getting people in jail or out of jail, it's all based on money. And so to me, I thought it was appropriate to write a song about the evils of money, and when people can't keep their homes, their houses are being lost to the bank, or a woman's starving and can't feed her kids because there's not enough money on welfare to help her. There's just a lot of facets in that particular lyrics and those lyrics to that song that I wanted to incorporate in what everybody seeks so desperately here in the United States, which is money, and point out a lot of the evils that are associated with it.
To me, track 5, You Don't Have Me, sounds like it could be a message song to the members of your former band, the Eagles, because I got to say, when I put on that DVD, Farewell 1 from Australia that they put out many years ago, and didn't see you there and saw like your almost doppelganger replacement, I kind of felt offended for you, Don. I wanted you in that band. You were 1/5 of that classic lineup.
Well, I suggest you write a letter for what good it may do. I don't feel that way, and that song is not directed at them. It's really about trying to be in any relationship, whether it's with a woman or a family or whatnot, where people. Someone told me a long time ago there are two types of people. There are givers and takers. And when you're in a relationship where you're the giver and someone is always taking and not reciprocating on somewhat of an equal level, then you build up this kind of harsh resentment. And that's what that's about. You finally get to a point where you realize this relationship's not going to work, and you end it. And the way you say that is, I don't know what you're looking for. You've got everything you need. But you don't have me. So it was not specifically written for anyone in mind, to tell you the truth. But it's interesting that you brought that up.
Understood. Don, you are a noted multi-instrumentalist. You play guitar, pedal steel, bass, drums, and piano. On Road to Forever, you're the featured singer and guitar player and songwriter. Do you think there'll be a day when you release a true Don Felder only solo album?
Oh, you mean just me and an acoustic guitar?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a song on there called Over You that started that way in the studio. I started playing that live just by myself. It was like a really quiet, intimate, acoustic part of the show. And then when we got in the studio, it was about 4.5 minutes long, and it just kind of lacked a little bit of dynamics as a recording. So we really thinned it down best we could, and but still brought a little pedal steel in it, and a little bass and some percussion, I think a cajon, but not a whole lot of production to it. It just seems like unless you are even Clapton, when he did his unplugged version of Layla and stuff, he did it with a band, so it wasn't him just there with a naked guitar by himself. So it's hard to make a record that way that's just so stripped down that there's nothing else on it except acoustic guitar, voice, and the song. I think I meant since you have the ability to play all the instruments, would you take on an album where you play all the instrumentation? Yes and no. All of the demos that I used to write, I played bass, drums, guitar, keyboards, everything on it, and usually sang the lead as well in the demos that I'd put together, like for Hotel California and that sort of stuff. I just had to do it in a key that I thought one or two of the guys would sing in. Like when I would write for the Eagles, I'd write for a key that Henley could sing in, or a key that Glenn would sing it in. And so I don't know that I'll ever do that and do like a McCartney version of a song where you play everything yourself. I could do it. I just think when I listen to myself play drums, I think there are many superior drummers in this world, and it really helps the groove of a record when you have great players playing it. That's why I brought in so many, not only close friends of mine, but people that were just fabulous players and singers for this record, as well as people that are really fun to be in the studio with. One of the things that caused a lot of reluctance to me about going into the studio to work on Road to Forever was that I had spent so much time in the studio with arguing and contentiousness and fighting in the studio. It just had a less than wonderful way in my mind about going into making a record. So I invited everybody in, like Crosby, Stills and Nash, Tommy Shaw from Styx, Steve Lukather from Toto, just a bunch of people that are great players and really fun to work with. And so I had a blast making this record, and really got to spend some time laughing in the studio with a bunch of good friends. So it was a delightful experience for me.
Tommy's great. He's been on this show, and we've seen Styx in the latter years many, many times. A great band. Now, Don, let me ask you, DonFelder.com is the website. Your best work, maybe, just might be your daughter, the lovely Leah Felder, a musician in her own right?
Absolutely. You know, not only am I a very proud papa with her talents, but she and herself on her own has got a record deal with Warner Brothers by going out and doing this charity event where she just sang with David Foster playing piano on this charity event, and Tom Wally, who was the president of Warner's, pulled her off the stage and said, "You come see me in my office next week. You've got a record deal." So it wasn't Dad pulling strings behind her career. And if you go online, you can see some of her stuff on YouTube. If you go search and do Brandon and Leah, she writes beautifully. She sings great, amazing voice, and she's really easy on the eyes as well. She was in my corporate band, my road band, for about 3 or 4 years, and literally during the show I could have put my guitar down, left the stage, and gone to the bathroom, and no one would have missed me when she was on stage. All eyes were glued on her. She's just a really lovely soul, a great singer, and yes, definitely my best work.
Yeah, I was checking out the videos and her songs online. Very, very good stuff, Don. Congratulations.
Yeah, she's got a Christmas album coming out that's out right now. You can order it on BrandonandLeah.com. It's really a great Christmas record. Took a lot of the standards. She wrote a new song called California Christmas that's on it. But they're done with like a really kind of rhythmic Latin and Hawaiian feel to them. So it's really a very rhythm-driven Christmas record. It's almost great for a Christmas party instead of the old standards done in the old way.
Don, just 2 more because I know you have to go, and you know, this is sort of an introduction. I've had many people on the show multiple times, and I'm leaving so many questions on the table. Love to have you back down the road. I know you're going to be touring a lot in 2013, so maybe we can make that happen down the road. But with your vast experience in the music business and your perspective on how things can and do go wrong in a band, do you have any advice to musicians who are thinking of forming a group, and have you given any advice to your daughter?
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the advice I've given my daughter, she hasn't listened to, much like my parents told me not to go to the music business. And, you know, I think that's just teen confidence. And I'm really proud to say that not only Leah was extremely well prepared, she, from the time she was 8 years old to the time she was 17, had the best vocal coach in Los Angeles working with her every week. So if she was going to do it, I was going to give her the greatest preparation possible so that she would be prepared when the opportunity presented itself. I was the same way. I spent 2 years in the studio in Boston working 6 days a week from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, learning how to make records, producing, playing on sessions, writing charts, engineering, just every aspect of how to make records so that when I came to Los Angeles, I could walk into any session and be not only have smoke and chops to be able to play anything, but I could get the sound I wanted by mic selection and EQs and that sort of stuff, and kind of co-engineer the projects I was working on. So all the preparation you can do, and then I think in Tipping Point or Outliers they talk about 10,000 hours. If you want to really be extremely successful at any field you're working in, you have to invest at least 10,000 hours of intense hours of preparation to prepare you for the opportunity when it presents itself for you to be able to succeed. So my advice would be, if everyone spent as much time preparing, practicing, rehearsing, and developing their skills as they did arguing and yelling at each other in a band, the band would be a lot more successful. So that would be my advice to any new band.
Amen, and I got a lot of work to do here, apparently. Lastly, Don Felder, how's the golf game, and did you get any pointers from Tiger Woods when you got to meet him?
No, we didn't talk golf. I mean, that's the last thing he wants to talk about. I'm certain those guys get up in the morning. They're in the gym by 5:30, 6 in the morning, training for an hour. They're out hitting 1,000 balls on the range, playing 18 holes, and as soon as it's over, they're back on the range practicing their chipping or their putting or their driver or whatever was just a little bit off that day. So the last thing they want to talk about is, technique or something about the game. But we had a delightful time when I met him, and he's really a great guy, and very proud of what he's been able to accomplish and do for the game and with the game of golf. He's brought so many new people into the game. Unfortunately, I've been working so much lately over the last 3 years that my golf game has gone somewhat downhill. So I just haven't had the time to invest in it. And it's not like riding a bike where if you go out and stop riding a bike, you can get back on it 6 months later and just ride like you did 6 months ago. So I try my best along the way to try to maintain my game, but I can feel it slowly slipping away between my fingers every month that I don't play.
You got to get the next 10,000 hours in on that.
That's right.
Hey, Don, thank you so much. Good luck with Road to Forever, and we hope to see you when you come through New Jersey sometime next year.
Oh, thanks, Rich. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on, buddy.
Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Rich Lynch on the Radio Show, part of the SoundPress.net radio network. Remember, if you're a band or artist looking for promotion, or if you'd like to sponsor this show or add this program to your station, please get in touch with us today at SoundPress.net.